This is the regular meeting of the Garden City Planning Commission. It's Thursday, May 9th, 2020. I'll call the meeting to order. And our first order of business would be to say pledge allegiance to the flag. If everyone would rise. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Would the secretary take the roll call, please?
Commissioner May,
Here.
Commissioner Steenberg. Here. Commissioner Walls. Here. Commissioner Kalidas, she's asked to be excused.
Here.
Commissioner Williams. Here. And Commissioner Bazzi, he is also asked to be excused.
Okay. Next item is approval of the agenda. We need a motion. Mr.
Make a
Steenberg?
motion to approve the agenda as stated.
Second.
Or corrections on the motion? Take the roll, please.
Yes. The motion was made by Commissioner Steenberg. Thank you. Thank you. How do you vote, Commissioner Steenberg?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Walls? Aye. And Commissioner Williams?
Aye.
Commissioner King?
Aye.
And Chairperson May?
Aye. Next,
I got everybody. All right, thank you.
we all set?
Motion carried, yes?
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of April 11th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from April 11th, 2024.
Motion's made and seconded. Any comments on or corrections? Hearing none, take the roll, please.
Yes. Commissioner King?
Aye.
Commissioner Williams? Aye. Commissioner Walls? Aye. Commissioner Steenberg?
Aye.
Chairperson May?
Aye.
Carries.
Okay, the next item is public comment on non-agenda items only. At this time, anyone who is here who would like to come forward and comment on an item that is not on our agenda tonight can step forward. Does anyone wish to step forward and comment on a non-agenda item? Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to the business items. First item, PPL 24-0012, a request for site plan approval to establish a medical marijuana primary caregiver growing operation at 32537 Park Lane Street in the M1 Light Industrial District. Mr. Ortega, could you start us off, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. We're here tonight to consider the summarized project in front of you. You have my review letter, and I'll be summarizing the application and then just providing some highlights from the letter. But this is a 0.59 acre lot. It's located on the south side of Park Lane, west of Hubbard, and it's occupied currently by a one-story, 11,000 square foot building that has an access drive to its east that leads to an open yard behind the building. And the applicant is proposing to divide this building into 7 separate units, and each will be approximately 1,000 square feet, and they will lease them to primary caregivers for the growing of medical marijuana. Now, the previous property owner received site plan approval to do a very similar situation that would have renovated the building for this same type of use. But they never actually went through with the project. So before you tonight is a new property owner trying to do, proposing a similar project. When it comes to medical marijuana primary caregivers, they are governed by the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. The MMMA adopted in 2011 and so they are permitted but under that state law to grow up to 12 plants for themselves, and then they're permitted to grow plants for other people that are registered with the state, certified as qualifying patients. And they can have up to 5 patients, and for each patient, that caregiver can grow up to 12 plants for them. So potentially a caregiver can have 72 plants under their care. And the state law is not very specific, doesn't have a lot of standards with regards to our zoning type of requirements, other than the fact that the low area in which a caregiver is growing these plants has to be within a secured facility, a secured locked area, I believe is the official terms. So the zoning ordinance was adopted to allow for such use because after much consternation in the case law, the municipality's authority to register, to govern use locations was substantiated and held. So before you tonight is this application. It meets all of our initial standards for setbacks for a marijuana facility from parks, from schools, from residentially zoned areas. This location meets all those requirements. So that by meeting those requirements for a medical marijuana facility, they, as a caregiver grow, they only require site plan approval. So with regards to the actual site itself, the building is an existing structure, and so the building with some of our standards, but it is legally non-conforming. Caregiver grow facilities, the ordinance speaks to issues such as wastewater. The applicant is proposing the installation of a 3,250 gallon oil and grit separator is connected to their wastewater lines, so that way it would prevent of pesticides, fertilizers, whatever nutrients even that are part of the marijuana grow process. I'd like to request is that the applicant provide a little bit more detail cut sheets on the exact operation of that piece of equipment. Just to let you know, this is the same piece of equipment that the applicant proposed several years ago, and tonight they have with them the same detailed information for a piece of equipment that would function adequately to protect the wastewater system from any nutrients. Similarly, with regards to other characteristics of a use, such as odor, we do require that they have some type of filtration system to make sure that the odor does not leave the building, that the odor is actually confined to the interior of the building. They have provided, or they're ready to provide tonight, they just handed it to me, some detailed sheets for the odor control system. Sometimes usually it's a combination of various filtration systems, whether they're HEPA filter or even higher standards, to ensure that the facility does not allow odor to escape from the building. They're ready to provide that, but I still think that should be part of any kind of approval. Other aspect in regards to this type of use is security. They have provided a detailed security plan, and the only thing we would suggest too with that is that having the police department have that on record, so that way they can make sure the security requirements on the site and that they're aware that the facility is in the area. Those are just some details with regards to the use itself. And then finally, when it comes to the site plan itself and the actual building, as I mentioned, the building is legally non-conforming. They are promoting some renovations that's going to refresh the building by painting it, dealing with cleaning and repairing, installation of some vertical metal siding along the roof line. So it would be pretty, standard, but well, an updated building for our industrial district. And then they are meeting all the parking requirements based on the size and scale of the use. They're meeting all the landscaping requirements with their proposed additions to the front yard. They are going to be utilizing and constructing a dumpster. And so the only thing with regards to the site plan specifically is we just ask that they provide more details regarding any lighting on the site, including the details of the light fixtures being proposed, the mounting height, light levels, and everything that's typical of a photometric plan for the site. We'll redevelop a vacant building and bring it into compliance with the current standards So while the majority of the applicable standards have been met to some degree, there are still several issues remaining. So if the Planning Commission does make the determination that site plan approval is warranted, we would just recommend that the approval is details on the wastewater system, details on the odor control system, and details for the lighting system. And then also one incident I forgot to mention was the location of any ground or roof-mounted mechanical equipment and any screening that's necessary. Sometimes these facilities do have a large electrical demand that might require additional equipment, such as any kind of transformers. So we would recommend, if they're going to be necessary, that those be screened just like any other use, because we require all uses to screen their mechanical equipment, whether if it's visible from the front yard or it's on a roof line. So our recommendation would be approval contingent upon those 4 conditions. And at the appropriate time, I can take any questions with regards to that review.
Okay. Next, would the applicant like to come forward and,
Good evening, gentlemen.
yeah, could you tell us who you are? and-
My name is Fareed Jamarda. My company's called Neighbors Investments. This is the project that we want to put together.
Mhm. Okay, you understand that there are still several items that Mr. Ortega has flagged that need to be included in the site plan?
Absolutely.
Okay, and you don't have any problem with any of that? Good evening, and you are?
Saeed Ahmed from Arbor Design and Construction, located at 16030 Michigan Avenue, Dearborn, Michigan. I'd like to address a couple of points, starting from the last comment, Mr. Ortega brought. We are not proposing any outside. The building does have a very good power system. It's a Delta system, 480 volt, it's still there, with the panel distribution panel inside the building.
Mhm.
When touching that, it's gonna tap off of that.
So you're referring to the screening requirement?
External equipment that are being proposed, everything is internal. Even the heating and cooling systems are gonna be internal. The KSI system for the filtration, it's already been proposed on the plan. I do have the previous detail and spec sheets for it, and we're gonna adopt the same system as well. It is sufficient, it has been reviewed previously, and it does meet the standards. As far as the control, it's also going to be equipment that utilizes carbon filtration, and these are going to be inside the building as well to make sure that the odor is maintained and not escape outside. Other than that, pretty much everything is proposed on the drawings, and if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Okay, did you have a question, Mr. Steenberg?
Yeah, the water filtration system states that it'll treat 3,250 gallons.
Yes.
What would be the average amount of water overall?
It's not gonna get to that point. We actually did oversize it at one point. It is only connected to the floor drains inside each unit. There would be 2 in each, that's a total of 14. And it would be possibly half the amount of that capacity is what would be disposed of within the
What is that based on? When they're processing the product,
Yeah,
they
when-
use water?
When not the processing, when they
Gotta water the plants.
irrigate or, distribute the nutrients.
Nutrients, yeah.
Sometimes, it falls on the ground and goes into the sewer system, and that's where the KSI system comes into play.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Frank?
I was just going to ask about the odor control. I think as the marijuana facilities have become more prominent? I know I've personally noticed driving through certain areas, and although this isn't our light industrial, it's very close to our residential. You mentioned some carbon filter. What is your, I'll say, expertise in knowing that that is sufficient?
Usually, we work with our mechanical engineer for that particular type of design. And it's based on the circulation of the amount of cubic feet per minute. And these systems are designed to handle the entire volume of air at any given time to make sure that it does. Now, it goes through 2 stages, and it does absorb, the carbon does absorb the odor. And at the same time, does filter the interior of each unit properly. And usually it does have a 90% efficient, 95% efficient control over the odor.
So maybe a question for Mr. Ortega, because I think we're fairly new at this. How do we know that this filtration system will be maintained, that it will not become a problem down the road?
So, in my experience with not only here, but in other municipalities, there's always different types of systems and different levels that are proposed and similar odor control. I have spoken to the state with regards to their requirements for this type of system. They really don't have any specific standards that they've developed over time. It basically comes down to experience. And just like any other use, when we design it and build it in the attempt that it should function effectively, but if it doesn't, then there just needs to be modifications to it. I've experienced that in other communities where they've installed the system, everyone thinks it's going to work, and then it just needs more. And so honestly, we just have to go in. The standard specifically states that the property has to maintain odor within the building. So if there's some type of complaint and ordinance, not odor, ordinance enforcement visits, if we do have any complaint, we'd work with the property owner to say what's necessary to upgrade the system to deal with that situation, if it's dealt with, if it's determined that they are the source of the odor.
Thank you.
Yes.
So Mr. Ortega said you guys are gonna lease these out to 7 different people? That's the intent? So my question is 2 things. The separation of activities. Will they be able to do that in each space since they're gonna be leased out to different people? Or is there a common area? And 2, with it being leased out to 7 different people, is 16 parking places enough for 7 different, technically, businesses in the same building?
So we did have the opportunity to look at this later, and it is something not later, in the past. And in the past, that was a point of conversation of the Planning Commission, because technically, the patients could be allowed to say, I'd like to go visit my plants. They don't normally ever do, but the applicant at the past indicated that if need be, they can have some type of visitation, coordinate visitations with the applicants. But to answer your question with regards to the capacity of the parking, it's one caregiver, so only one caregiver is actually technically permitted within each unit, so that's 7 right there. And if they had one patient visiting at a time, that's where the others come in with regards to that. And just one other thing I wanted to point out in regards to the security. Initially, the previous application had 7 exterior doors, and then it would go into the building. This application is proposing creating an interior corridor and then having 7 interior locked doors for each individual unit. To me, that actually, as I thought about it, that probably is a much more secure system than 7 points of entry, just 1 point of entry that'll be maintained and secured on security cameras and that sort of thing and well lit. And then interior-wise, yes, the problem is the state's law is very, very, very vague. So there's no standard that they need to have. So having a secured locked keyed door with a completely walled off, it's actually a lot better than other options I've seen, which are sometimes they just have like a fenced-in cage, or not even that cage, but a chain link fence storage area. The separation activities, that's based for all the growing activities within the unit. So, we're not sure about what's necessary or required with that, but I would think that if the 1,000 square foot for growing those, whatever number of plants they have isn't enough for the property owner, for the growers, then I imagine the applicant would find that out by not eventually having, people leasing it if it's not capable of accommodating them.
I was just curious because it says that all drying, soil mixing, testing, processing, and other non-growing activities must be in place of a separate room from growing activities. So 72 plants, that's total per, whether it's a flowering plant, a clone, or in between. I'm just curious because there's nothing in here showing how you're gonna break each unit up, if they're gonna break it up. I'd like to see a little more detail on that.
And they can have a detailed
They
floor
have,
plan.
they do have a floor plan.
That it's just one big wide open unit.
Yeah, each space.
No.
Is,
Go ahead.
each space is for one caregiver.
Correct.
Your question addresses whether they're gonna have the flowering and the, what's the other term? Vegging and flowering separated. We did have a discussion with the owner about this, and he said there is no necessary need to do that, as long as we maintain 72 plants, whether it's being, vegetated.
Yeah, you can go over the same.
It's necessary according to our ordinance. That's all I'm stating, yeah. Right here it says, and all drying, mixing soil, testing, processing, and other non-growing activities must take place in a separate room.
Non-growing activity.
Correct. So when they cut the plants or whatever, that's gotta be in a separate room of all the growing activities.
I see your point. So it has
So-
to be within the same
Within the same unit,
unit.
but in a separate room built in that unit.
Right.
For cutting and sorting and. Correct.
So one way to answer that question would also be that, so they'll create the 7 units, and it's just like another multi-tenant building, such as an office building, in which each unit is going to have the caregiver apply for a certificate of occupancy. And that certificate of occupancy requirement, a requirement of the certificate of occupancy is an individual floor plan to how they lay out their unit. Because you are right, that's in the ordinance, that's a requirement. So each caregiver is going to be responsible for how they separate their areas, and they have to provide that as part of the application, and that's recorded with the certificate of occupancy that's eventually issued.
Technically, this building's gonna require 8 CLOs.
7, there'll be, yes, actually, it will be 8. It'll be 1 for each, one for the actual whole building, which, for the property owner, and then 1 for each individual, yeah. That's how we've been doing all multi-tenant buildings lately.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mike?
We speak of security, is this going to be linked to the police department, and have they reviewed the security apparatus as is?
So we've never had a situation in which any of our medical marijuana facilities are linked to the police department. I think it would be up to them if they feel that's necessary in terms of the security standards. But to the best of my knowledge, normally that doesn't occur, even with the facilities that are licensed by the state. Because while this is a caregiver under MMMA, the other types of facilities, the other facilities that we have, the medical marijuana commercial facilities under the MMFLA, and then other communities that have adult use, those both types are actually, their security is reviewed by the Michigan State Police Department. The state police goes in and measure and does all their different tests. They have a lot of very elaborate, very detailed security requirements for each facility. And I guess I can't speak to whether they do require any kind of connection to facility or not. I don't believe so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, that begs the question, if the building is not going to be occupied 24 hours a day by an attendant or a security guard or a live person, in the event that an alarm does go off, who's going to respond to it?
I mean, I guess that would be
I mean, do we
something
wait
that's up to the property owner and how they want to coordinate it. Because actually, from what I recall too, other facilities that I have approved, other communities, what they do is they have their own separate private system that is linked to monitoring system, such as like an ADT or something like that, that automatically calls a police in that instance.
With one of our past applications, we forwarded the security part to the police department and had them review it before we approved it. And so maybe that would be part of our, if we decide to approve this, it could be part of the contingency to have them review the security for final approval.
Absolutely.
May I?
Yes.
The previous owner, when we worked with them, and Mr. Taylor mentioned this, we did develop the construction documents, and they were reviewed, I believe, by fire marshal and police department.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, because we do have a security plan implemented, and there is a whole literature written on page SP2 for that matter. Of course, there was a security plan and also some literature about it. It was approved by the police department. Even the fire marshal had no issues with minor details. Unfortunately, it fell apart. They didn't continue with the project, so.
Yes, since that's all expired, we have to redo all of that, I believe.
Of course, yeah. So our construction documents come up to be about 25 pages. They would address interior, they would address equipment spec sheets, odor control equipment types. They would be reviewed by mechanical engineer or mechanical inspectors, electrical inspectors, building inspectors, police department, fire marshal, fire separation. That's also on this.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
I just got one more question. There is a park in the corner of Manor, or, Manor, and Hubbard,
And Hubbard.
and this is, you can literally see the park from this building. Do you know the footage from lot line to lot line?
I can get that to you in a second, but based on the recent review of this application, they're in compliance with this, with the setback requirement. But I'll confirm that, triple check, confirm that.
Mr. May,
Yes.
I just wanted to kind of add about the individual spaces that, and how we license them at the city. So they will apply for a license for the, and this includes a C of O business license and also a medical, marijuana license, not, well, I guess we do refer to it as medical. So they will get one for the building, and then each individual suite will obtain a C of O, a business license, and their own individual marijuana license also. They'll be responsible for paying all the fees, each of those suites as it goes down. So the other one that we have in town is licensed that way for a business license, and then also the annual fee for the marijuana too.
Okay. Did we have any other questions for the applicant? Did you have any other comments that you wanted to bring up? Okay. Well, thank you for the information. Now we'll move to the Planning Commission discussion. The only, I know we went through this before, and I know we also checked the distance between the parks. But I would like to see us add to the contingency the police review of their security proposal,
Absolutely.
and also approval by the fire marshal, because of the fact that the way the building is laid out, we have long, narrow sections with dead ends.
Right.
So I'm a little concerned about travel distances to the exits and any other fire-related items that might come up. I think those two should be added for contingencies if we decide to approve. Any other? Yes.
Just for information for Commissioner Williams, the park is, this site is 560 feet from the park on Hubbard, and it's a required setback of 500 feet. So it's in compliance.
Yes.
How many current operations do we have in the city for medical marijuana?
One that's up and operating, two that are, have their permit, under the current review for construction plans.
Does this include one more?
I'm sorry?
Is this one of them?
No, this is not, this hasn't been approved yet, so no, this wouldn't be included. This, because, and then.
The other two are on Hubbard, I believe, aren't they not?
Right, yeah, well, one's on Hubbard, one will be on industrial, and, well, the two are on Hubbard. Two are on Hubbard, one is going to be on industrial.
One operating, two in construction plans.
Review, yep,
And then this one.
yes.
So that brings up another one.
Well, just to let you know, those other three are the three that are we are permitted under the MMFLA, the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act. This is a separate type of facility for caregivers that is licensed under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, specifically for caregivers. And the reason why we have that separation is because prior to not to get into it too detailed, but prior to a state Supreme Court decision on the DeRuyter case, caregivers felt they could be growing anywhere. So we had caregivers doing this operation that they're proposing in residences. Luckily, the DeRuyter's decision indicated that municipalities can write ordinances to govern the location. So we had to write an ordinance that said where the caregivers could grow in the city. We couldn't restrict them, or excuse me, we couldn't prohibit them. You can't prohibit any specific use, but we could say where they could go. So we wrote an ordinance that allows caregivers doing this type of operation to only grow in the industrial district. And then we also had a business license requirement, one of those being that they could that they have to comply with that industrial requirement. So by having that requirement in industrials, that makes this type of activity illegal in residential structures. So luckily we had that passed, and we've been very successful lately in getting caregivers out of homes, because before they were in houses. So this is a different class of medical marijuana compared to the other three that are approved.
So they're not class A, B, or C?
No.
This is totally different?
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions about the proposal? Well, we need a motion for action to approve with conditions, or deny or table.
I'll make a motion to approve with conditions, including a detailed cut sheet for the separator and the approval of the proposed treatment system for wastewater. Second, a proposed odor control system that confines odors to the interior of the building. Third, the mounting height and light levels for all proposed light sources, including detailed cut sheets for all fixtures. I want to note that number 4, the applicant has stated that there will be no incremental ground or roof-mounted transformers, generators, or other mechanical equipment. 5th, a review by the police department. And then 6th, a review by the fire marshal to ensure travel distances to exits are appropriate.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Would the secretary take the roll, please?
Yes. Commissioner King,
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Commissioner Walls,
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, your application and site plan are approved. You can contact Mr. Ortega to continue with the process.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck with your business. Okay, the next item, PPL 24-0006, request to rezone a portion of 32000 Ford Road, 250 feet north of the Ford Road property line from C3 General Business to M1 Light Industrial. Mr. Ortega, would you start us off?
Yes. So the site we're looking at is, it's the, as we all know, it's the old vacant Metropolitan dealership. The site is approximately 13.18 acres, and it's occupied by the vacant one-story dealership building with repair bays in the back that totals approximately 75,000 square feet in area. I think it's the third largest commercial building in the city. There's also a small 1,700 square foot, single-story used car sales building to the east of the main building. So the site, currently, the northern 4.27 acres of this site is zoned M1 line industrial. It runs from the northern property line, going about 450 feet south to an imaginary line, and south of that line, it's currently zoned C3, general business. The applicant is requesting to rezone an additional 2.24 acres of this site to be to the M1 light industrial district. So similar to the M1 that's on the northern part of the site, they'd like to move that line that's at 440 feet further south, basically about another 230 feet. That line would then line up with the southern edge of the building that was previously utilized for vehicle repairs and maintenance. And then the new line between industrial M1 and C3 would be about 250 feet from Ford Road. So the intent is to allow for that rear building to be utilized for industrial uses. So before I use my review letter, it summarizes the existing conditions, zoning, and future land use of the site and the adjacent property. I'll just point out some highlights from my review letter. And to me, with regards to this situation, I believe the most important factor is the compatibility between the other adjacent uses. Because the intent of the ordinance is to promote and protect the character and economic well-being of the area, as well as secure the best and appropriate location and relationships between businesses to make sure that any new zoning would allow businesses that are compatible with each other. So in this particular location, the property to the west of the area of the site is zoned and currently used as industrial already. To the north, it's also currently used and zoned in industrial. To the east, the very northeast of the site is the Garden City DPW yard, and that's zoned industrial. But then directly east of this site, it is owned by the Gordon Chevrolet dealership. And then the southern portion of the area is obviously Ford Road, and then the businesses along Ford Road to the south. So the delineation between industrial and commercial would be on this particular site. So based on the level of activity that industrial uses would have, and the level of activity of a C3 business. Our C3 is our most intense commercial district, allowing for things such as used car dealerships, car washes, gas stations, drive-through restaurants, and other high volume, high intensity, what we planners call high intensity. They have a lot of vehicle traffic, long hours of operation, and characteristics that might be negatively impact adjacent residences. However, in this case, there's also no plan or existing residences in any proximity to this site. The closest residences are either on the north side of Block or south side of Ford along Pardo. So with regards to this location, the industrial would be in pretty good distance away from any residences. So we do believe the proposed rezoning would be consistent with the intent of the zoning ordinance, and it would not negatively impact city residences. So it would meet the intent and purpose of the ordinance. Other things we look at as well, of course, is the master plan. So one issue with regards to this is that the site has gone through an extended vacancy. I was trying to figure out exactly how long ago it was. I want to say 2010. I think, is when it was last occupied, and it's been available for commercial development, the entire site, and it's just for one reason or another. I mean, obviously, you've had, the pandemic, but that was even, 2020. There were 10 years before that there could have been an opportunity for commercial development, and for one reason or another, it just never occurred. So, that extended vacancy period, and also in general, just the overall reduction in demand for, traditional commercial land would tend to indicate that the potential for the entire site to still be reused as commercial, would be pretty remote. This rezoning would allow for the site to be reused as industrial, but still allow for commercial opportunities along Ford Road. With regards to the other standards of rezoning and approval, we do believe they're in compliance with these. It's not going to result in any inclusionary zoning, not result in any exclusionary zoning, appropriate precedents, and all the requirements of the M1 district could be met with this rezoning. So the rezoning of this middle portion of the site will allow for new opportunities to occupy a long vacant building. And we would advise the Planning Commission to recommend to City Council the approval of the proposed rezoning based on the summary of findings of facts at the end of my letter. So with that, I'll take any questions when necessary.
Mr. Steenberg.
What type of uses would be available under M1?
So they would be allowed for any type of manufacturing uses, any kind of production, also any kind of warehousing and storage uses. Those are the main uses that we usually do. Technically, it would allow for, I think, some commercial operations if they ever wanted to service industrial, but mainly it's, warehousing and industrial that we've seen, warehousing and production that we normally see in the industrial district.
I see on the email address on the property owners, I'm not sure of what it all says, but part of it is wholesale.com. So could this M1 involve retail operations, new or used, anything?
Well, if they wanted to, I guess if they had any retail operations, meaning actual direct interaction and sales to customers, like individual customers, they could have that occur in the remaining portion of the building that's going to remain commercial, remain C3. But that portion, if this were to be rezoned, the portion to the north could not be retail. It would mainly, actually, it would be, could have the potential also as well for wholesalers. So, for something like someone's producing something like, we've actually had some interest in people trying to do wholesale baking or that kind of production where they do a lot of mass production of like breads or cakes, and then they actually get, then taken to individual restaurants in the area. So wholesalers could be located in the industrial portion to the north side, but to the south side, it's only be permitted, that's where the customers would be, individual sales to individuals.
Okay, let's move on to the applicant. Is there a representative?
I'm Yusuf Pedro, representative for Metropolitan Holdings.
Mm-hmm. Good. Is there anything you'd like to point out or say about your proposals here?
I mean, just the proposal in general, as Mario stated, I mean, when you're looking at that line in the back, it's definitely, the actual building itself, compatibility-wise, can only be utilized for warehousing, storage, that type of use currently,
Mhm.
The front portion, we're gonna keep obviously for retail purposes or whatever it may be. But, that back portion, warehousing uses, clean warehousing use is what we're aiming for.
Okay.
Oh.
Yes, Mike?
Could you clarify what the email address is? It looks like Hassan at, and what is the rest of that?
This is Hassan, one of the partners here.
I am Hassan.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
real good. Yourself?
One of the owners for the Metropolitan Group. And I have a different business. And I use this, for all my emails I forward to
Okay, but what is this email? Hassan at, what is the,
This is my email address for the other business. It have not just to receive my email. It has nothing to do if I want to do like wholesale or anything in that.
It's a separate company, is what we're saying.
Separate.
Oh, that's the one that's on the application.
Right, he owns a.
I'm just asking for the clarification. I understand what we're doing here. So it's Hassan at what?
ARYC wholesale.
ARYZ Wholesale. Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay. Did you have anything else you'd like to say about your proposal?
In regards to the proposal, I mean, I feel like it's just clear, being cut. You know, we've had several discussions with Mario. We've basically they've been putting in significant capital improvement into the property. Like I said, the warehousing that's currently there ranges in sections from 7,000 square feet to 15,000 square feet. So we don't know exactly what's coming in yet, whether it's going to be leased out in sections or to one particular tenant. You know, we'll find that out once we actually get the property advertised. So, you know, and like I said, the intention is basically to look for any type of clean warehousing use. You know, that's our intention. We don't want anything that's gonna, you know, be of a dirty type of business coming in. You know, they've made a significant investment into this building, and their intention is to basically, anything that comes in obviously is gonna have to go through Mark. You know, and we've been, you know, there's been an open dialogue, everything that, you know, we've done has been presented to them. So if there's any particular questions that you guys have that we can answer, we'd be glad to.
Okay, well, we may come to that later on after the public hearing, but we have to, if you're done with your presentation, then you can have a seat for now, and we'll.
Mr. Chair, if I may, just to provide more information for everyone, Mike, you were mentioning what others, I pulled up the ordinance, so because, to let the applicants be made aware that the Planning Commission is considering a straight rezoning, meaning as property owners, if the rezoning has occurred, that you would be allowed to do any uses that are either permitted by right or apply for those uses under special use. So under permitted by right, in addition to manufacturing and warehousing, other things that we list are laboratories, lumber yards, and actually health or exercise clubs, tool die gauge and machine shops, and other research and light manufacturing similar. So those are the permitted uses, and then special uses would be contractor storage yards, construction equipment and related sales. So like in theory, any kind of sales of equipment. Then metal plating, buffering, millwork, lumber yards, those, and mini warehouses as special those are special uses I just mentioned. So the other types of uses that could be permitted. And if I might say, one of the things we're trying to do is, with the industrials, you know, health and exercise clubs seems to be something that goes into them as well. So if they had that opportunity, it seems
Okay.
just another wider variety.
Okay. Well, next we have public hearing, so I'll open the public hearing at 7:20. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this item in the public hearing? Okay, seeing no one who wants to speak on it, do we have any written communications?
We do not.
Okay. Then we'll close the public hearing at 7:21. And move on to the discussion with the commission. Do we have any comments or questions from the commissioners?
I just have one.
Yeah.
If we rezone this from C3 to M1, that increases the industrial district, right?
Yes.
So they could use this for another marijuana grow facility?
Technically, yes, they would have to come in and apply.
Special land use they can form?
Well, it would open it up for caregiver grows, similar to what occurred. They would not be allowed any adult use, because obviously there's no adult use in the city, and they would not be allowed to do any medical marijuana caregiver, they would not be allowed to do any commercial medical marijuana facilities. So those larger facilities, like as you mentioned, saw in the ordinance, Class A, Class B, those sort of things, those would not be permitted because the city only allows 3, and we already have our 3. So they would, the only ones that could potentially come in here would be medical marijuana caregivers. So each individual 72 plant situation.
I question that as well, because we only have 3, because that is physically all that is able to fit in the existing industrial park, the park that is zoned M1. If we change the zoning to this, to M1, then it would also satisfy the criteria of them being 1,000 feet apart, and also the criteria of M1.
Well, we have a maximum hard number of 3. And technically, we don't have a 1,000-foot separation from the facilities. So the current ordinance only allows 3, and we have our 3. So there would no new facilities can come in
Okay,
currently.
all right.
I was curious about how this site was platted, because it just seems odd that if we have one plot of land, that we would be splitting the zoning up in that manner. I know it already is split, but is that a normal operation?
It actually is. In communities with larger parcels of land, in townships and rural townships, it's actually quite normal to have them have split zoning on a piece of property. For example, a lot of large lots, like 80, 100-acre lots, or even, this would be small in some townships of 13. But when they're along a commercial corridor, a community will normally have the frontage zoned for commercial, and then the rear zone is agricultural. So a lot of times they only go back 200, 300 feet. And then the rest of, but, if you did that, then you'd have to, you can't require them to split it so you can have have an actual lot line that splits the commercial property from the rest. They can't be required. They could, as long as they meet the other requirements of the ordinance, but it's actually very common in rural communities.
Okay. I was just curious about that. Do we have any other comments or questions about the rezoning proposal? If not, we can entertain a motion for a recommendation to the council.
I'll make a motion to approve the council to request to rezone a portion of 32000 Ford Road, 250 feet north of Ford Road property line from the C3 to the M1 light industrial.
Okay, and with your recommendation, we have some recommendations, I guess, to include in the motion.
No.
Starting with consistency for basic intents and
In page 4, Mr.
on page
Wall.
4 of the review.
Those are just findings of fact you can cite if you like.
Those
Yeah.
items in your motion?
Yeah, we can include those in the motion. Line A through E.
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any questions, comments on the motion?
Commissioner Walls.
Aye.
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Aye.
Commissioner May.
Aye.
This motion passes 5-0.
Okay, our recommendation to the city council then is to approve the rezoning, and I don't know which meeting they'll be taking that up, but in the near future, I assume.
Near future.
June 6th.
June 6th is the plan. Okay. Right.
Okay. Thank you.
And good luck.
city-initiated request to rezone the following properties. A, we have 1769, 1757, 1753, 1749, 1211, 1139, 1061, 1049, 10 Inkster Road, from O1 office to C1 local business. And also, we have the east 240 feet of 16-1 to C1 local business. And at 1501 Inkster Road, from O1 office to R1 family residential. And the north 125 feet of 975 Inkster Road, from vehicular parking to C1 local business. Mr. Ortega?
Yes. So I'm happy to report that this would be the last of our necessary revisions to the zoning map, one district. So we've done this process on Merriman Road, Cherry Hill, and Middle Belt, and Inkster is our last location. And believe it or not, we thought this would, given the amount of notices and the amount of background work they needed to get into it, we thought it would be best to try and split this up into 4. So before you tonight is the largest one. The first being that there are 17 lots at 10 different address locations that are currently zoned R1 that are proposed for the C1. These sites include a couple dentist offices, a couple of insurance offices, some doctor's offices, and notably the Santu Funeral Home site. And then also what appears to only be one vacant office building on Inkster. And I'm also going to bundle into this summary the fact that there's also one lot where the east portion is currently zoned O1, and we're proposing to have the east portion rezoned to C1 and retain the vehicular parking on the west portion of it, of that site. So C1 zoning will allow the existing uses to continue. They will not negatively impact them in any way. They will be allowed to continue. And the C1 rezoning will allow for a wider range of uses in the future if they ever want to come onto the site, allow not only for offices, but retail uses, retail sales, and service uses on those locations. It will not permit drive-throughs, auto sales, gas stations, bars, smoke shops, party stores, or pawn shops. They would not be permitted in the C1 district. This rezoning is consistent with the master plan and the future land use map. The vast majority of the Inkster Road corridor is proposed to be local commercial, so this rezoning would be consistent with that, and being developed in accordance with the regulations of the C1 district. So similar to our other efforts, these sites would be allowed to be given greater opportunities in the future to have their businesses either be maintained or expanded. Some other concerns property owners did have was if this rezoning would negatively impact them from a tax standpoint. In my conversations with the assessor, they do not consider the zoning district itself as a factor in the taxing and determining the value of taxable property until it's the actual property owner goes in and does additions. If they have, an addition to the property that increases the square footage, that increases the amount of improvement on site, that's when the assessor makes their evaluation to determine the value of the property. And whether or not they will do an addition, it might happen more frequent or more often, more readily based on the rezoning, but it's also giving the property owner the opportunity to have a greater, business opportunity on that site. So with regards to the other two other sites, so those are 18 property that's rezoned to R1. It is owned by the Santu Property and Development Corporation. It's a single-family home. There's a sliver of property that is still, for some reason, zoned O1. There's probably some type of error that it didn't get rezoned when it was sold and incorporated into a single-family home site. And so this is proposed to fix that. So therefore, then that site would have no issues, once again, with having any additions or added to the site, having wider refinancing opportunities. It's consistent, this rezoning, with the future land use map for the R1, and once again, consistent with the master plan goals. And finally, there's one site on the southern end of, on Inkster Road, where we believe it was probably a mapping error, in that the site is split between C1 on the south, vehicular parking on the north, and that line goes through the existing Chinese restaurant. So for some reason that occurred. They probably thought it was going to be on the edge of the parking lot, but for some reason that line goes through the building. This rezoning will fix that, make the entire site C1, allow them then the opportunity to expand on the building or sell the building or redevelop the entire lot, provided, of course, they meet with the parking standards. So that's the intent of these. And as we mentioned in a summary for each individual rezoning, we believe it's consistent with the master plan and the zoning ordinance.
Okay. Well, next we'll open the public hearing. John, do you care to comment on any of this?
When I first got the notice, it kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety, but Mr. Ortega has talked with both my son and I and explained much of what he just said. And so we really have no concern, with regard to the rezoning. We think it sounds reasonable.
Okay, good. I'm sure there's no negative impact for you. And this is basically a matter of housekeeping now. So trying to bring everything up to what our new zoning situation is and clean up some of the old errors in some cases.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for coming. Is there any written communications?
I don't have a written communication. I did have a couple of visitors, though, that did receive a letter, and I spoke with them. They didn't want to put anything in writing, but they were not, once we explained what was occurring, they didn't have any concerns either. So.
Okay. Well, then I'll close the public hearing at this time at 7:33 and open it up for the Planning Commission discussion. We have any comments or questions?
None.
Okay.
I think all the homework's been done.
Yeah, I think so. Well, then we can entertain a motion to make a recommendation to the council.
I'll make a recommendation for the council to do the city-initiated request to rezone the following properties: 1769, 1757, 1753, 1749, 1211, 1139, 1061, 1049, 1035, and 1021 on Inkster Road from O1 office to C1 local business. Also, the east 240 feet of 1647 Inkster Road from O1 office to C1 local business. 1501 Inkster Road from O1 office to R1 one-family residential. And the north 125 feet of 975 Inkster Road VP vehicular parking to C1 local business.
A second.
And in the recommendation, do you want to include those items listed along with the recommendation?
Finding a fact on page 8.
That's 8, I think.
And recommend that it's all in with the recommendations of A through D.
Okay. Is there support?
Support, yes. Second.
Any? Hearing none, would you take the roll?
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Commissioner Steenberg.
Aye.
Commissioner King.
Aye.
Commissioner Walls.
Aye.
Chairperson May.
Aye.
Motion passes with 5-0.
Okay. Other business. We had some of our members attend a joint meeting with the planning, or with the city council and the mayor and the DDA, I believe.
Yes.
Just a
Frank,
point
you
of
wanna-
clarification, I think it was a subset of each of those bodies. There wasn't a,
Committee, yes.
Yes. Would someone like to bring everyone up to date on what actually happened at the meeting? Little synopsis, maybe? Matt, do you want to do that?
I did also provide to each of you this.
Yeah.
And I did kind of a meeting notes of what the meeting was and listed out. Basically, we reviewed kind of 3 areas of concern specifically for the Planning Commission. Of the master plan, zoning ordinance, and also the Mishta Housing Readiness Grant. Of the talking was really to see how we could encourage development, and then also that when an initiative comes before us, we're not working against each other, the DDA, the council, the planning commission, everyone's on the same page, and that was expressed at the meeting specifically to do so. But in regards to the master plan review, the group did review a memo from Mario about the required 5-year review of our city's master plan, and the group did talk about kind of the need for a subsection plan review, and also wanted to update the community standards and community information that is in the original master plan that is kind of out of date. We also talked about the need for an economic development plan and to look at really specifically kind of the downtown area specifically, and to include some design site layout ideas. We also identified really specifically kind of the Kmart site to do a focus on really, we don't own the site, but we could do a review of what we would like to see there, and say if we look at increasing the housing density, the building height, all of that, once we've talked about doing what's called a charrette of that site, where we would bring all of the groups together, including the property owners, the adjacent property owners, to look at what's our dream of what it would look like, and then how we would have to adopt adapt our master plan, and then adopt the ordinances that would permit that kind of use, either use or building style, building density in that area. So that was kind of one of the things that we came out of kind of our master plan review. And then we also moved on to zoning ordinances. We talked about specifically, the last time we met at the Planning Commission, we had meetings about parking and all of these zoning ordinance issues that come before us. And we actually were looking at kind of a reduction in the restrictions of we need to work to spur some additional development and look at the reduction of some of our restrictions. Of course, with those reductions, you have to look at, if we do a reduction of the restrictions, we have to look at how the implications of that are throughout the whole city. It's not like we're gonna open the gate and, let the cows run free. When we make recommendations, we're gonna look at how it will affect throughout the city. Because once a use is permitted in the district, we can't stop it. If it's allowed at one spot, it's gotta continue in every zoning ordinance, or in every zoning district that we have. So we talked about that. We talked specifically kind of about north of Middle Belt Road and looking at the possible changes to the C2 zoning ordinance to allow for a few more automotive-related uses. North Middle Belt Road from Garden going north is really starting to look really tired also, and we need to see if we could get some different growth that occurs there, and possibly by opening it up to a few more automotive-related uses, specifically possibly filling station, possible car washes. Those would be permitted, but we, again, when we talked about expanding those, we looked at increasing, if we allow the use to occur, we want to also put some limits on it regarding the site size for that. So we're looking at doing that. And then also, we wanted to, really talk about, once we go through the charrette process and our housing readiness grant, really looking at making amendments regarding density, land use specifically for housing, and to increase the density and also the permission possibly of ground floor residential in the downtown, which is prohibited at this time. We're really, a lot of talk was about how much commercial floor area space do we need? And the face of shopping is changing so drastically that stores, I don't know if in the future stores won't even be here, I don't know. Is everything gonna come via Amazon or not? I don't think so, but it is changing so much that we really possibly need to make some changes to look at how much commercial floor space we really even need. What can our community support? And we talked about that, and also zoning ordinance specifically related to housing, looking back into the neighborhoods, either lot size, the permission of senior type housing in the single family zoning districts, those things that we have some opportunities, I think, back there that we couldn't go forward. A school I specifically talked about, the Garden City Hospital offices behind Douglas Elementary. I don't know the name of the school though. Was that not Memorial Elementary? It was another elementary school behind Douglas.
Lathers?
Oh, Lathers Elementary, thank you. Lathers, back there. It's a large tract of land in single family. Of course, single family could be permitted, but it could be turned into a senior living facility or something like that. And I don't think it would negatively impact the area, but through the planning process, maybe it will, I don't know. But we need to start to look at making some changes to permit different uses that might occur in the single family zoning district to allow to increase density. We explained that Garden City can't grow anymore. We're landlocked, that we need to look internally for growth that way.
Yeah, as far as that Garden City Hospital property, have they let us know that they want to continue using that in the future for office space or whatever?
We've had no communication.
No.
So I was just using it as an example.
Yeah, but it is a opportunity.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And it's an aging elementary school though, too. So I don't know how long, will they want to continue to maintain it? They're making changes over at the hospital. Part of the plan just is to knock down the front office building. So it may increase the office space that they want to use back there, or move more people over there. I don't know. Or move people into the hospital, to work at offices there. So.
But they still use that for parking too, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's half utilized most of the time, the parking lot. I go down Hartel quite often. It's not fully utilized.
But those kind of analyses are things that need to be done, and Matt did, we mentioned it at the meeting, but Matt did have an application. We worked together to get an application to get a grant for the housing readiness study. So this is a grant that would allow us to go through a planning exercise, an effort to create a document that will have our housing, to create a sub-area, not a sub-area plan, to create a planning document specifically for our housing needs, because that's the specification of the grant. And so those kind of analysis can be done, not only look at an infill housing study for single-family residential, but also what other opportunities there are for other types of housing sites, such as what we were just discussing. And so we're looking at, the outcomes for the meeting was the work that we've been getting together to strategize and how to begin the scope of work for the infill for the housing readiness study. We're also outcome from the meeting was that wanted more increased communication between each other, so I've already started communicating with the DDA through Matt, of course, and then the board chair to make sure that they have the opportunities that they had in the past to comment on development that's coming up, so increasing that communication. And then the DDA has indicated they'd be willing and interested in providing comments for one or anything that the Planning Commission looks at, having comments from their recommendations in front of the council. So that way it has that full round of discussion between all the bodies, because I think that as a body, you guys mentioned that that's something you wanted to see increased effort on. So we're going to be increasing those communication channels between each other to have that occur. So in addition to the housing readiness study, Matt mentioned the economic plan, possibly looking at the downtown Kmart site. So we're going to strategize on the best approach for that moving forward. But then one other thing was in regards to the zoning ordinance and some zoning amendments. So some of them, based on the discussions, are pretty easy to have they move forward with the initial step. And that initial step is you guys, is the Planning Commission to look at a proposed changes to the zoning ordinance that might spur on new development opportunities on long vacant sites. So, and one of those might be, as Matt mentioned just now, looking at something that's been very successful for us with when it comes to car dealerships. Car dealerships in the past were found throughout the city, and that's because it was just a general commercial designation. The ordinance was amended to require a minimum of a 2-acre lot size for used car dealers, and so it's been effective in that we're not overindulged with new car dealerships. The only existing ones on the smaller lots are the only ones that can remain. So one of the ideas that was discussed was the possibility of allowing that on some of our larger sites to accommodate those type of auto uses, but not car dealerships, so such as like fueling stations or gas stations or car washes. The potential to allow those in other corridors, because right now C3 is mainly just on Ford Road. There's a little bit up at Inkster and Warren and Middlebelt of C3, but there is the possibility of looking at sites available in the C2 district that if they meet a certain square footage, would it make sense to allow those other type of auto-oriented uses on there as a special use? They would still be special use. It'd be in C2. They'd have a minimum lot size requirement, probably of 2 acres, and allow that as an opportunity for getting long vacant sites redeveloped, because it turns out some of those larger sites that are larger for us, the cost of construction to see those redeveloped apparently is could possibly be a reason that they're like putting in other retail uses or other service uses that aren't working. So that's something the joint body talked about, and so I just wanted to bring that up because we'll be putting that on the agenda for official discussion, but I wasn't sure what you guys were thinking in terms of looking at that as an example of ways to modify the ordinance right away to allow for development to come in. What your opinions were on something like that.
And we were, Mario and I were studying just, say if we put in a 2-acre, 1.75, 1.5 acre, we're studying our zoning ordinance to see where this could occur. Where if we allowed a couple more land uses in the C2, where it could occur throughout the city. And so we're slowly getting through those, but we're looking at sites, where it could occur. And again, when we make a change, we have to think about the implications throughout the city. Because if we made a change in the C2, of course, Middle Belt Road is zoned C2 up to Warren, but there's C2 throughout the community, so we're looking at that also. So.
Yes, Frank.
So I would just, personally, I think we should be looking at that, especially when you think about, Mr. Miller, you mentioned one of I'll say the weaknesses of our city is we're landlocked. But one of our strengths is that we have these corridors that run through our city that are optimal for someone who wants to put in a business that leverages that strength. The only other thing I wanted to add to what you both talked about, because I agreed with everything you said, was vacant properties. I do think the Planning Commission has an opportunity to, maybe it's not a standing agenda item, but a periodic agenda item around vacant property metrics. you know, I don't even know how many vacant properties our city has compared to, you know, per square footage or whatever, to neighboring cities. What are the top 10 properties in the city that we would like to see development? And are there something specific around those zones where ordinances are maybe prohibiting or limiting options? So I think vacant property should be a more prominent topic.
Yeah, if we get more specific about sites, then we can have a better idea of what it might take to
That's right.
make them available or attractive. Yes.
One of my goals for the next year actually is to create available properties. So I'm trying to make it more positive, saying vacant available properties.
Okay.
So it's all in the marketing, I think.
That's right.
So we're working on that. Actually, I think we have an intern identified that's going to kind of map them, give us the square footage, take a picture, the zoning, property owner, kind of put it all in one spot so that we can kind of start, you know, kind of a baseline, which Commissioner King said is really a baseline to see what is vacant, who's the owner, what's the zoning, and have we received calls on it? And you know, we receive calls on things, well, it's not zoned, they move on. Well, we can't afford to do that. We need to keep, can't let people move on as much as I would like to see. You know, I want to see more growth and more development, so.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I will share with Commissioner Kalidas and Bosley
Okay.
that too, so they will have it. Okay.
Great. Eric, did you have anything? Mike?
Nothing, thank you.
Frank?
All set.
Kelly? Nope. Do you have anything else?
No, I don't know if you were made aware or not, but I started as Community Development Director, and then at the last council meeting, I was appointed as the interim city manager. The city manager did tender his notice and will be leaving the city. I will take over on May 20th as the interim city manager and help guide the council through the process of hiring a new city manager, which will not include me.
Not looking for that.
No. But anyway, so I don't know if it was divine providence or whatever that I stayed and continued.
Yeah.
But we'll hopefully be able to work through that process. So I'll still be focusing on community development, but I will have an additional hat, which will be the interim city manager during that time.
Has Doc already left, or?
He has not left. The 20th will be his last meeting, so I'll take over and he'll be there also at that meeting.
Okay.
Was there something specific that precipitated his departure, or?
I don't know, you know, just, I think it was.
Do we know where
Didn't
he's,
mention
do we know where
anything?
he's going?
He's going to Deltona, Florida.
Deltona?
North of Orlando.
North of Orlando.
Yeah.
And he spent quite a bit of time in South Florida, so
Yeah, he was in Tampa before, wasn't he?
somewhere around there. Oh, was it
Yes.
Tampa? Okay. Oh, Tampa.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, good luck with that. Next regular meeting is Thursday, June 13th, 2024. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.